Hey everybody, this is your video on how you do your 5-1 Math Excel. So to start with, it says graph the function f of x equal x squared plus 12 as a translation of g of x equal x squared. So basically you want to start with x squared, which would be the dashed one like that, and then move it up 12. It's a vertical translation up. Of course, what you can do is just check your table or type in numbers, or even just do it mentally, like 0 squared, then plus 12, 1 squared plus 12, 2 squared is 4 plus 12, like that. Or you can type it in here, go to a new document, x squared plus 12. Now it may not show up sometimes, so then what you do is menu 4A, which is zoom fit. You can do that. You can also do Control T. The main thing is you need to make sure the width is correct. And just as I scrolled up, I start to see some symmetry I'd like you to notice. So you see the 13s match, so let's go up one more and hopefully the 16 will match, and it does. So that means 0, 12 is the middle. So sometimes you may not be able to do it this way just from the table. It may be a fraction or whatever. And so in that case, what you do is menu 6 for analyze, and then you either go to minimum or maximum. In this case, it would be the minimum, because it's on bottom, and it says lower bound, so you just click, and then right bound, so there's your 0, 12. So you are going to have to pick a couple of points on your Math Excel to make it the correct width. So again, use the table or plug numbers in, make your own table. The other thing I wanted to mention about this is something that may be helpful, maybe not just on this lesson, but other lessons. So when you press Tab to get back to it, there are things called equation templates. So if you do menu and then 3 for graph entry, equation templates are right there. So you have some line ones, some parabola ones, and some other things. In this case, we're doing x squared, so that'd be parabola, and so then you do this, and you can see there's vertex form, y equal a times x minus h squared plus k, and then you're not going to use the sideways ones for this lesson at least, but that's your vertex form. They also have this ax squared plus bx plus c. They call that standard form, but in most textbooks they call that general form. So let me just show you what happens when you type number 1. Okay, so now it says E1 instead of F1, and you would just type numbers in front. So in our case, it's very simple with f of x equal x squared plus 12. And your general formula for the standard form, or the vertex form, is a times x minus h squared plus k. And so in this one, it shows E1 for equation 1. And you would basically type in 1 and then x minus 0 squared and then plus 12. 1 and then a 0 and then a 12. And so then it traced it, and then it, it just did it. Okay, so that's how you use your calculator on it. The next one wants you to graph the function and describe how it's translated from x squared. It's just simply x squared minus 4, and so every point moves down -4. So it's the same width and everything. Also on this one, I thought it'd be useful if we use the x-intercepts also. which are 2 and negative 2, because you can say 2 squared minus 4. Or you can do it like we did before. If you have y equal x squared minus 4, cover up the y. So 0 equal x squared minus 4. Move the 4 over, and then take your square root, so plus and minus 2 is x. So that means plus and minus 2 comma 0. Those are your x-intercepts. So those are different ways to do it. Of course, it's algebra, so there's many ways to do it. The next one says identify the vertex, axis of symmetry, maximum or minimum, and the domain and range. So this is your formula, a times x minus h squared plus k. And they're giving you the function negative parentheses x minus 10 squared minus 19. So the first thing is your h is this number with a number with a different sign. So you have to change your sign of h, but keep the sign of k. So basically change it from a negative 10 to a positive 10 and keep this a negative 19. So that would be it. Now the next part is the axis of symmetry is always based on this number. And so it's going to be a vertical dashed line. On one of the problems you'll actually have to graph a dashed line like that, and this would be x equal 10. And then your maximum value is negative 19 because your value is a y value. The domain would be all reals because it's as wide as you want. And then your range would be anything from negative 19 down. So that's y less than or equal to negative 19. Now, another way you're going to learn how to do this in pre-calculus is you would say negative infinity up to 19. So this uses parentheses for whenever it's plus and minus infinity, and it's a bracket if it includes the number. So parentheses negative infinity comma 19 bracket, that is equivalent to y less than or equal to negative 19. Basically means from negative 19 down. Okay. The next one says write a quadratic equation to model the graph. So you have a vertex 3, 8, and so then you start plugging in the 3 and the 8 into your equation. So it's x minus 3 squared plus 8 with a in front of it. Remember that when it's a negative, that means it moves it right. Moves right. And so that would help you remember that it's 3 to the right. Okay, the next thing is you want to substitute some point, like in this case it says 0, 17. And when you do that, you put 17 here, you leave a as the variable because that's what we're looking for, and you put 0 for x. And so you basically do your substitution, you keep it negative 3 and keep it 8. So then the next step I did was I subtracted 8 from both sides to get 9. And then negative 3 squared is also 9, and when you divide that out, you get 1. So a is 1. What that means is just that it's a normal width graph. A usually represents the vertical stretch. But in this case, it's understood to be 1, just like a coefficient. So it's the normal width. Now the next one is the same instructions, and what we're given is the negative 1, 6. On the graph, that's the maximum, which is the vertex in this case. You know, a vertex is always a max or min. of a parabola. And so if it's like that, that's a minimum. Even if it's like up here, that'd be a minimum, because those are the lowest points in the graph. And if it's something like that, that would be a maximum. So make sure you understand the difference between minimums and maximums. Then what we're doing is we're just plugging in 0, 0 for our f of x. So that's what you do for that part. And then for the negative 1, 6, we change the sign to plus 1 and keep this a positive 6. And then just work it out. So 1 squared is 1, and then we subtract 6 from both sides. So you get negative 6 equal a. That means the number in front is negative 6. Also, I would like you to remember that this negative sign indicates it opens down. And then it would be left 1 and then up 6. In this case. Okay, so then the next one, this is one of the longer problems. They're basically relating this, like comparing it to lines which have rate of change. It's possible to find the rate of change between 2 points of a function by finding the slope between the points. Use the graph to find the y value for each x value, then find the rate of change. So they basically on this said 5 comma blank and 6 comma blank. You literally just look at the graph and see it's 10 and 9. And then from there you use your slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now what teachers usually do is they say x1 y1 is the left side and x2 y2 is the right side. So you do 9 minus 10 and 6 minus 5. 9 minus 10, 6 minus 5. You get negative 1 over 1, and so that divides out to just be negative 1. Okay, now for part B, they're using the same ordered pair, 6 comma 9, so you already know that from A, and then you look at the one for the 7, you see it's going to be 6, in my case at least, and then you do the same slope formula, and you get negative 3 in this case. So we got negative 1 to start with, then we got negative 3. And then when we do this next one and we use the 7, 6 again, we get a negative 5. So what I'd like you to notice, I'm not sure at this point if it's in the notes video or not, but your second difference is constant. And in this case, it's 2, because between negative 1 and negative 3 is a difference of 2, and between negative 3 and negative 5 is a difference of 2. So it's not your first difference. If your first difference is constant, then it's linear. If your second difference is constant, then it's quadratic. And so it involves parabolas. The next thing is it says, what is noticeable about the rates of change as it's further from the vertex? So in our case, the rates were negative 1, negative 3, and negative 5, so it's decreasing at a faster rate. It's getting smaller because it's further away from 0, and it's at a faster rate. The next part says, would the answer for D change if you were on the left side of the graph for your intervals? So yes, all signs would change. This means the rate increases instead of decreases when you move from the vertex to the left. On the next question, it says, write the equation of the parabola in vertex form. You're given a vertex and a point on the graph, and so just like before, You plug in your vertex x coordinate and your y coordinate. Remember, this is your h and this is your k. And then you're going to use your point that was given. So you put -2 for y, you put the 1 for x, and then you're solving for a. And so when you work that out, you get -10 in this case, and so you get -10x squared plus 8. Okay, on the next one, by the way, just real quick, just as a thought about what I was thinking about, you cannot do quadrag with only 2 points given. So don't even try it that way. I would recommend, again, put in your 0 for the h, put in your 8 for here, and then just work it out. So x minus 0 squared was just x squared, and then we put 1 for x. So that should all, go together. The next one is the same instructions, but this time we have fractions. And we have the vertex as 1/8, comma, -39 halves, and then the point is 1, 5. So you start the same way. You're going to put the y value here. You don't know a yet. You put your x here, which is 1. You put your -1/8 here, and you put your -39 halves here. So I kind of combined steps. I added 39 halves to 5, and I got 49 halves. And then when I subtracted this, I got 7/8. Then when you square 7/8, you get 49/64, because you square both the top and the bottom. And then I multiply by the reciprocal, so that's 64/49. I did that to each side. And so your 49s cancel, and so 64/2 is 32. And so you have a 32 in front, then x minus 1/8 squared minus 39 halves. On the extra practice A, you just have to graph -2x squared. Again, use some points. Either make up your points from your handmade table, or do Control T. Now, just as a reminder, as a calculator teaching type thing, when you go into -2x squared, and when you press Control T to get your table, all the numbers are here. But if you go to Menu, Table, Settings, which is number 5, then you could put it in whatever order you want, as long as you put independent to ask. That means put the x value to ask. And so then you can type in whatever you want for this side, and it will give you the result. So let's just say I wanted 10 there. Then it told me it's -200. What if I wanted 2? What if I wanted -2? What about 0? What about 1? And so you could do these in any random order without the extra numbers. So you can use that, or you could go to your table. Just Control T, and it reverts back to the default with not being independent to ask. The next thing is you want to graph 1/12 x squared. So again, same thing. You can even do this by hand as far as 1/12 times 6 squared. So that's 36. 1/12 of 36 is 3. And so you could do this manually. Sometimes what they have is an x column, a function or a process column, and then a y column. And so you're able to do this, this way too. So this would be your 1/12 times 6 squared, and then this would be 3. So I've seen different books have it this way also. And then your last one is you want to graph -3 times x plus 2 squared plus 1. So first, look at your vertex. You change the sign of this one, so it's -2, and then you keep that sign the same. So then, again, just do Control-T, look for symmetry around that, because if you know this is the vertex, then you're probably going to want 2 above and 2 below. Also, another option is to go to Graph and then Menu, Analyze Graph, and then 3 for max. So, for example, -3 parentheses x plus 2 squared plus 1. Okay, so there's your graph, and then you are always analyzing the graph because you're thinking about it. So that's number 6. There's minimum, there's maximum. In this case, it's maximum, and it's between here and here. And so it gives me some random numbers there, but that's really close to -2. By the way, just as this very last step, before that, make sure on your Math Excel that you also do your vertical line. You're going to need to do something like this. Menu, graph entry, relation, and then I'm going to put x equal -2. And so mine is a solid line, but on your Math Excel it's going to be a dashed line. Okay? All right. One other thing I wanted to tell everybody, for your settings on your calculator, go to handheld setup. I prefer doing 5 minutes for my power standby and auto dim. If you want to have less time, you can, but that way it won't fade out for me. I do have my pointer speed as slow, but can change that to medium or normal. I do enable tapping to click. So that's my handheld setup. Also, when you go to settings, you can go to document settings. And this is where the only thing I ever change really is make sure this is on float 12. Make sure you're showing a whole lot of decimal places. Okay, and later in trig you would change this from radian to degree, and then make sure you're just normal for exponential format, so you're not in scientific notation. We just want to keep it normal. Okay, and then keep it real. Keep everything else the way it is. Okay. You can even change your base there if you really wanted to for logarithms. Okay, so I would just keep it all normal. So you have that. Then one other thing, when I go back to my graph that I was looking at, we'll just go current. When you're on this screen, sometimes even though you had like a whole bunch of decimal places on one thing, this one only showed you 2 or 3. So you have settings to change on this also. So go to Menu, then 9 for settings, and under this graphs and geometry settings, then you're going to want like float 12 again. So that means you get to have 9 numbers before the decimal and 3 after, or you could have 2 before and 10 after, or whatever. I just leave everything else the same. So anyway, just thought that was a really good tip for everybody to see at one time. Okay, hope you have a good day.